Good morning, everybody. It's Sunday, about 9 o'clock, and I thought I'd walk everybody through my lap vise for spoon carving. A stump in the back. Give you a walking tour. So first off, you'll notice that I am not sitting on a hard bench. I'm sitting in a fairly comfortable camping chair, and there's a belt attached to my vise. The belt goes around your back and it connects to this other peg here, which holds the vise square to your stomach. So I'll show you that in a second, but walk you through some of the easy stuff. So for the dumb head, I just have a couple of pieces of 2x4 glued together. You can put a couple of holes in them wherever you want, and the important thing is to maybe wrap some leather around it. Reduces some of the denting that you would get if not. And just know that your staples may mark your wood if you clamp down pretty hard, because, well, you can clamp down pretty hard. See if I can do this. Might have to pull this apart for just a second. All right. So the legs sit on the floor, and you can make them to whatever height you want. The width is obviously the width of the 2x in the middle here. It's going to be a couple of pegs, which I happen to have turned out of some cherry, but just an old dowel with a block on the end that you can pull out is also just as good. And then a couple of screws in the bottom front to connect everything together. This platform, you can see here, sitting in my lap, I figured it would be a little bit more comfortable to have something a little bit bigger. It used to be somewhere up to here, I guess, and I've been cutting it away, kind of get it back to where your knees are. We'll go through what the holes in the top are for in a minute. And then you've got another section of 2x4 with a couple of holes drilled into it. And the top block, you'll notice, is cut at an angle. And some of the stuff in the front here, we'll go through that in a little bit too. So hang on a sec. The main reason I built this is I get called to a lot of demos, and I wanted to be portable going into the demos. I wanted to have a way to make sure that I could carry everything in like one trip, if at all possible. So I've put everything back together, and I'm actually wearing the vise now. You'll see it's on my lap. So to use this, simply push your feet forward. A little bit of pressure. You can see how tightly it grips. I don't think I can draw knife this one-handed cleanly, but we'll give it a shot. So to draw knife, hang on a sec, that's the wrong grain direction. That's never going to work. So the draw knife, because I'm shooting one-handed, can be used to pull things very cleanly when you're doing it two-handed. So I tend to work fairly roughly with the axe back on the stump, and then I'll come into the vise and I'll clean up all my faces and facets. And as it gets more spoon-like, you can see you can get all your cuts where you want them. You can flip it up sideways, flip it over, etc. But after a while, you might decide that you want to work more like in a spoon mule. So I built this attachment, and I'll walk you through the attachment first. First I cut that down because it didn't really fit in the back here, but depending on how you build yours, it might fit and you might not need to do anything. It certainly wasn't wide enough. This is a $3 Harbor Freight clamp, and that's a piece of coat hanger. So it's built like a traditional spoon mule would be built. I did put a notch in the jaws to give me a little bit more space, and you put your feet forward and everything gets held in place. Now the nice part about having this, and again, pardon me, I'm shooting one-handed here, is with just one little turn down here, I now have full access to the top of this if I wanted to cut it with a draw knife. And I can cut from front to back in one clean pass, either pushing or pulling, depending on the grain direction. And then to unclamp, it's a quarter of a turn to tighten. And we're tight again. So this is coming very handy, and like I said, it's a quick build. I'll show you the underside for a second here. So you will need to cut your mortise at an angle on both sides, and if you want to open the jaws wider, you can use the top clamp and hold a much larger piece, and so forth and so on. Relatively straightforward, but next up, so this cord here is just so it can hang off of that block so I don't lose it. But next up, if you don't own a lathe, you don't have to turn this, but this is all turned out of one piece from something I had mounted on the lathe, and it just falls into this hole. And now what I've got is a way to clamp a larger thing like a bowl. So when I'm doing bowl carving, that's in tight. I can take this, flip it around. If I'm carving off the edge, I can set it up all the way at the top here. You can see that. And if you look carefully, these are all slightly acute angles. So they're not 90 degrees, they're 75-ish degrees. give or take. And that really helps lock the bowl in so that it doesn't lift up, it doesn't come forward. And again, you can use your draw knife as you're carving the outside. And you can sit very comfortably in a chair and do your work. And just a little bit of foot pressure forward just keeps everything locked down tight. And if you pull it back, things come out kind of one-handed, very easy. So anyway, that's a walk through the system as it continues to emerge. If I was going to make another one at some point, I'll give you a couple of thoughts. So thought number one is the height to the floor is, I don't know, I think I had 19 inches, you know, standard chair height or whatever. Might be better at like 21-ish, because sometimes you're pulling the draw knife and you've got to kind of duck your knee out of the way. So if it was up just a tiny bit higher, that might be helpful. And if you did that, then that would probably make another thing go away, which is sometimes when I'm working here, what I'll do is I'll throw an extra block in like that, and that just brings everything above the height of my knee here, so I don't have to do that silly knee trick. But anyway, either way is kind of an answer to the question, but just being a little taller to get it above my knee height would be fine. And so anyway, that's kind of where we are today. As this progresses, as I think of things, I'll post updates. Talk to you soon.